Hello and welcome to A Woman's Heart. I'm looking forward to sharing this conversation with you. We had Jamie Ogle with us today, and thanks so much for joining us today, Jamie.
Thanks so much for having me, Lisa. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, well, as I told you, I just read right on through your book. It kept me on my toes till the very end, and we're going to talk about that some more. But first off, I would love the chance to get to know you, let my audience get to know you a little bit. So tell us something about yourself and something fun that isn't normally in your bio.
Okay. I'm Jamie Ogle. I'm from northern Minnesota, but I currently live in central Iowa with my husband and our three kids. We homeschool. We just moved, so everything is a little bit chaotic here, but we
Oh,
are slowly unpacking and de-chaosing everything.
good
Um,
luck.
Thanks. um, I don't know. Something else that's not in my bio is probably that I love antiques. I love thrift shopping. I love hunting through free piles at the ends of people's driveways. You
Oh,
never know where you're going to find treasures and stories. So,
yes, yes. Well, and I have heard from multiple authors that you just never know what will spark something in a story. There's no telling what you will encounter that's going to end up in a book somewhere.
yep.
And all the fun stories that you can come up with. So, well, I wish you the best on a smooth and quick settling in because even when I've just done a room, it's chaotic enough. And yeah, moving a whole house is definitely a challenge on that one. And in the middle of this, and right before we dive into your book a little bit more, what are you hoping people will get from our conversation today?
I hope they come away just um, a little more solid in how God loves them. How we are chosen and beloved, and He looks at us with deep affection and love, and He wants the best for us. And, sometimes we feel like we have to strive for it or work for it or, be perfect to make Him love us more or make Him happy. But, man, He died for us when we were sinners. And so that goes into the book a little bit too, but I hope that's what readers come away with, feeling just the deep and intense love of God.
Yeah, well, and that theme is definitely woven in and around your latest book, and the book that I got to read is Daughter of the Rebellion. For a minute, I couldn't remember if it was A or D. So, Daughter of the Rebellion, and it's set in the Roman Empire. So,
Mhm.
what was the spark to get you to write about the Roman Empire in this time period?
So I have three books now in the Roman Empire,
Okay.
and the first one was kind of my, you know, foray into the Roman Empire, I guess. I was writing colonial era stuff before then,
Oh, okay. Well, that's
and
where I
so
live.
very different. And I loved that, but I kind of started researching, Valentine's Day because I thought it was dumb, and looked into the origins of it and was kind of captured by this story of this church leader who defied the emperor and began marrying couples in secret. And so I was like, where's the novel? Where's the movie? And I couldn't find one, so I ended up writing it. So
Okay.
that kind of where the Roman Empire part came in, and then as I got a publishing contract for that, they were like, "All right, let's keep going. What other Roman Empire stories do you have?" So,
Very
uh,
good. And this one was definitely different.
mhm.
You have, is it Adele? I'm not sure how you
Adelgard,
pronounce.
Adele.
Okay.
People pronounce it differently, but
Yeah, I was like,
okay.
okay, I'm not quite sure how you pronounce this. Adele. She is captured. She's a Visigoth, and she's captured by the Roman army and then sold as a gladiatrix. It's a female gladiator. So you hear about gladiators and you think men, but you don't always think women. And I don't know if she was the beginning of the book or if it was Telemachus as the missionary, but what made you want to dive into this story of Adele?
Yeah, so as soon as I heard the story of Telemachus, I was actually at our homeschool co-op, and another mom was like, "Oh my goodness, have you heard this story about Telemachus?" And she just went on to the whole story about, the end of the gladiator games and his role in it. And I was just, I knew immediately I had to write this story.
Oh,
And so thinking about the different angles on how to do it. And I started researching gladiators and the games and the gladiator schools and found out there were female gladiators. And I was like, well, there's my heroine. Like,
yeah.
that seems like a no brainer. So, yeah, that's kind of where the story kind of took off. And it went through a couple iterations, but yeah, we have ended
So,
up with ended
yeah.
up with what it is. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
well, it was fascinating to hear about that, and then some of the things that they had to go through, which just made my blood boil. But it really was. And a lot of the things that she had, I guess, out of necessity of where she was, had convinced herself that, oh, well, because I'm popular and they chant my name and they feed me and all this, she kept kind of having this running diatribe or internal dialogue of, well, they love me. And then when she meets somebody, she's like, that's not love. And there's nothing really loving about the fact, because you are a prisoner. You can't leave. You're not free to leave. You have to do certain things. You're under this. How important was that part to you in the internal dialogue part, and how important those things are that we tell ourselves, whether because of past stories or out of necessity in the situation that we're in?
yeah, I think in this story, she carries a lot of guilt and shame. And so she's trying to kind of cover that up with, I did this and this is going well for me. So this is where I'm just going to focus all my energies in this part because I feel good when this is happening. And so, we can kind of delude ourselves into thinking that this is a good thing or this is a good life. This is the best I can hope for because I have all this baggage back here and I
Yeah.
can't do anything about that. So I'm just going to go this way. And so we see, in the story that Adele has really tied up her worth in what she can accomplish and what she can achieve and what others think about her.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and, she feels like there's no way she could ever be loved or chosen for who she is. So she has to do all these things. I think, man, it's so easy to get caught up in those
Yeah.
kinds of thought processes. And it just kind of ended up naturally kind of coming out in the story as I kind of dug deeper into who she is and what is driving her throughout this story. So,
Yeah.
um,
What are some of those things that, as you were diving into her story and her backstory and why she did things and everything else, what were some of the lessons that God was showing you for you?
yeah, I mean, I grew up in a Christian home. I grew up, I was the good girl, I was the rule follower. And, sometimes that kind of gets in your head of like, God loves me if I do the right thing. If I'm doing the good thing, then I'm making God happy. He loves me then. And then if I mess up, oh man, the guilt and shame just hit you like, oh, you're a bad person. God doesn't love you. You've made him upset. Like, so you kind of
Yeah.
twist his grace and twist his love into something that you can earn and you can keep based on your own achievements, based on your own, like if you're doing all the right things. And so just seeing his grace and his love throughout this story, and we kind of get to see that through Felix too, and how he shows love and care to everyone around him. He's still human, he's still struggling with his own things, but
Yeah.
um, he's not rebuffed by the hard edges and by the mess ups. And it's the same way God looks at us. While Romans 5:8 says, while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. Like this, when we were enemies of God, when we were at our worst, he died for us. Like that is intense love. It blows my mind every time. So, no striving on our part could free us. Just like Adele in the story, we're slaves to the school of sin. We're clutching at, any lies we have that tell us we're fine, we're good, we can do this on our own.
Hmm.
We can get out if we, work hard enough. But it took God from the outside to kind of dismantle those lies and show us that it is impossible.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I love you bring up Felix, and I really appreciated how he, from the very beginning, treated her very differently than any other man that she had really encountered, and was like, somehow, even though she was very had some very high walls up
Mhm.
in regards to men, with everything that had happened in her past and experiences, and then being in the gladiator school, that he somehow understood that all that harshness came from a different place. It wasn't that she was a mean person. It was really more out of the fear and the guilt and the anger. And he somehow knew that and was still able to treat her with some compassion and understanding and just kind of jab back. And it really kind of took her off guard. But I really loved how you kind of wrote that in with their relationship. And is that how you wanted their relationship to be from the beginning?
Um, yeah, I sort of imagined, it to be sort of this enemies to lovers kind of trope a little bit, just because she was so closed off and, thinking about all this, the pain and her backstory, like what kind of man would it take to kind of break down those walls and get through to her? He would have to be very different from every other man she's, encountered and known. So, it kind of, those two things kind of just fed off each other, I guess, and formed Felix into the guy he was. But
Yeah. Well, and Felix on that end, some of the things that I noticed that he was having to work through was he had some stuff in his story where he had to learn some forgiveness and also learn about that compromise because so often and I think in our world today, in his world and in our world today, it can be so easy to rationalize compromising. And of course, in this case, God worked it all out. He worked it out quite well. I mean, in using some of that, but he really had to kind of struggle, not at the beginning, but towards the end with going, oh, wow, I really am compromising. And then also those themes of forgiveness that you brought in with him.
yeah, yeah. So he was interesting in that, this time period in Rome, it's not illegal to be a Christian. Christianity has now been firmly established in the empire for 100 years, and so Christians are getting a little bit lax. And he's Felix specifically is finding himself in a situation where he's, trying to take care of his family, but also needing work. And the only work he can find is in a place that kind of goes against what he believes, but he needs to take care of his family, so he's going to make this little compromise and start working here. And then it's, creating a rift between him and the rest of the church. So he just won't go to church. And so he's making all these little baby steps, all in the name of helping his family, which is not a bad thing. But he's kind of getting himself deeper and deeper into these like little decisions that kind of bring him to a point where he can't really turn around.
Yeah, that is true. Well, and it wasn't so much the way I remember, it wasn't so much that he decided not to go to church. It was there was
Yeah,
someone in the church that were looking at him askance and making him feel unwelcome. And that is just one of those things that really bothers me because I do know people who have not felt welcome in church. And it's like, but we're supposed to be one of the most welcoming places, not that we don't confront somebody who's doing something wrong or we don't confront sin and we don't tackle heart issues, but that's why Jesus came was
yeah,
for all of us.
yeah,
And so when that scene came up, I was like, oh, and that still goes on today. We trying
yeah.
to kind of wake us up and go, oh, we need to be a little careful about what we say to people and make them feel more welcome.
Yeah, and I think that's like the tough part about, we kind of look back and be like, oh, it must have been so amazing back then. They were closer to like the time of Christ and like all these things. And we like, oh, the church must have been so much better back then. And then you start reading like the early church history and like what all they're arguing about, and you're like, what, really?
Yeah.
Oh man. They
There's
were
a reason
human
why
back
some of
then
that stuff
too.
was in Paul's letters.
Yeah. Yeah, listening to First and Second Corinthians as I'm mowing the lawn, I'm like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, that should not have to have been addressed. Should
Yeah.
have already been known. Really, I have to tell you this? Yeah, but then we yeah, I sometimes wonder what sort of letter Paul would write to some of the modern churches.
I wonder that too.
Yeah, it just what all he would be saying, guys, really, no, this is not what I meant, or this is what I meant, not. So I
Yeah.
think that might be an interesting thing to explore in a book. And you mentioned that you started writing this because of Telemachus. And so tell us a little bit about his story. He's not the heroine or the hero, but he is a player in this. And so what was so fascinating about him?
So there's not a ton known about him.
Okay.
Um, so we do know he was, he's called a monk. Some people or some claim he was Coptic from Egypt. Others claim he was
Okay.
from oh, like the region of Bulgaria. I'm
Oh,
trying to
okay.
remember what that was called back then, but anyway. Um,
I don't know.
so there's these varying stories. He shows up in Rome on January 1st, and they're having these huge games, and he kind of gets drawn into the Colosseum and sees the violence and is so put off by that that he is determined to stop it and do whatever he can to stop it. And basically the last, few chapters of the book is, what really happened, but I've just kind of fleshed it out from the character's point of view. I don't want to spoil it exactly,
Yeah, we
but
don't want to spoil all of it,
um,
but he
so
did
that's
play a role.
yeah, so that's the bare bones of what we know. And so it kind of made me think like, okay, so he did this thing and it had this profound effect on the emperor and on everybody around. And so it made me wonder who was this guy? Was he known in Rome beforehand? That he had this huge effect on everybody? Or, what was his story? And so I kind of his backstory is fictitious. I made it up that he was a famous gladiator at one point who earned his freedom and everybody knew him, everybody loved him. But he kind of escaped Rome, found God, and became a missionary to the Visigoths,
Yes.
which is why he's drawn back in when the Visigoth captives are supposed to be fighting in these games. So I made up that backstory to kind of flesh him out a little bit more and get him back into Rome, and then to have this profound effect on all these people watching the games and recognizing, like, oh man, that's our fighter, that's our guy. But he's very different now.
Yeah, yeah, he's very, very different, and I loved his character. I thought that was really neat, and I was excited when you see him in the beginning, and you're not quite sure if you're ever going to see him again, and then he comes in, and you're like, oh, so I really enjoyed having him come back in and realize that his story was not over in this because I hadn't read all of it. To begin with. And so I just thoroughly enjoyed, as I said, I don't want to give away the spoilers, but you definitely have to buckle up on your seat towards the end because there was a lot of twists and turns. And I was definitely did not want to be interrupted in the last part of the book because it was just cruising through. You did a great job of keeping the attention and wanting to go through that, the story and get to the end, which I was a little nervous that it might not have a happy ending. So if people need to hold on that not all was doom and gloom, then there are some glimmers and bright spots at the end. So it's, but it's definitely a little difficult, and definitely their treatment of the women, which I have to just remind myself that is historic, but it's not always in the degradation and how they were looked at. Was there anything in there that you were maybe trying to teach a few lessons on how we need to look at each other, male or female?
Um, I mean, there's a lot of themes of like everyone is made in the image of God and they are precious and chosen. And so it doesn't matter, who they are, male or female, like we are all image bearers of Christ and we should treat each other like that. Um, so I don't know if there was anything like specifically other than that, but that was one
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. Well, and it was interesting to see some of the relationships in there where you thought would be different and you're like, no, it doesn't. There was the Romans and some of the gladiators and people from all different walks, and in some ways you expected behavior out of one, and then you no, they're not, but they are, and so wait a minute here. So it was kind of all over the place. Now, Jamie, when you're writing about these stories, what are some of the things that maybe have surprised you along the way? Because God has this way of, we go into things with certain expectations, and then he surprises us and goes, yeah, no, there's something else I want you to learn. So what are some of those things that God has surprised you with, while you're writing this book, or some of the others?
Um, Yeah, and I think a lot of it is I go into a story just thinking about the story. Like I know where it's going, I have the characters, and all the spiritual stuff is I don't even think about what that could be. I just start writing the story and just let God bring that out as the characters are kind of walking this path. So that's been kind of fun to see just like, okay, I wonder what this one's going to be about, or
Ah,
and there are some themes that just continually come out. I mean, there's courage and sacrificial love in every single story, and then also just surrendering and trusting God, which can be really really difficult. I think in this book specifically, we have both Felix and Adele. Kind of, they wanted things, and they were a little bit scared if they surrendered it to God that He wasn't going to give them what they wanted. So they were like, I'm just going to get it myself. I'm just going to,
yeah.
there's Adele has a line that's something like, I clutched my future so tightly in my hands because I didn't want to lose it. And
Hmm.
I didn't want God to take it away. So, and she
Yeah.
ended, I butchered the line. It's so much better in the book, but,
And I'm sorry, I don't have it written down as a quote to give to
um,
you.
but just how easy it is, for my life. Like I like to control things. That's nice. I like to feel like I'm in control. And even in writing, I want to have the plot all figured out beforehand so I know where it's going. And inevitably it goes immediately off my carefully planned plot. And God is teaching me to surrender to, the story He wants told. And, sometimes I fight that. But, we have that kind of coming out in the book as well, where the characters want something, they're tired of waiting on God, or they're not sure God's going to come through. So they're just going to go ahead and try to fix the problem themselves. So,
Yeah, well, and it is. It's so easy to do when we have an idea as to what we want. And I would say in this case, she wanted freedom. She didn't want to stay a prisoner and a gladiatrix the rest of her life.
and that's not a
And
bad thing,
no, that's not a bad thing to want to be out.
but
It's not a long lifespan there.
no.
So, but yeah, the whole idea of just when we have something in mind and it's not coming along, the life has taken a detour, it is very easy to go, wait a minute, well, apparently, God, you're not really taking this in a good direction, or you don't care, or you're not listening to me, and I don't trust you anymore. It's kind of a trusting thing, in my opinion. And it can be very difficult to trust him. It's not like you can see him. You feel him, you know he's there, but sometimes the reality of things that we can see and hear and touch are far more real to us in the moment. And so it can be very easy to take things into our own hands, as you mentioned, and just kind of like want to take it in that direction. But then throughout the book, it's like that letting go and bringing him in, bringing God into the story. They realize, oh, wait a minute, you know what? The direction I was going probably wasn't the best one after all.
Yeah.
No. Now, how often, you mentioned he does that in the story? How has he done that throughout your writing journey? Not just with this particular book, but I know a lot of writers have a very twisted and turned journey getting into writing during their writing. You mentioned you used to write colonial, and I live in colonial Williamsburg, well, not in the restored area, but close by. And then you pivoted and changed. What are some of the ways that God showed you that you needed to pivot, and then the lessons you learned in trusting him to do that?
Yeah. Well, it's kind of, how long do you have? No. Um, so when I first started, I loved American history. I loved that the courage and the sacrifice and all that. And so those are themes that have just always resonated deeply with me. And yeah, I had ancient Rome was not on my radar at all. I had, like I said, I had my plan.
Well, yeah, if you were thinking American history, that Rome doesn't necessarily play in.
No, not really. So I had my plan, and then really just kind of this story of Valentine just kind of came out of left field and kind of took over, and I couldn't not write it. It was just something that it stuck in my head, which I do believe was God just kind of putting it there and planting that seed. So I wrote that, and really just that book was so special. Like, I grew so much just in my faith writing that one. Just, it's a story of the Christian church under persecution in Rome. And so, digging into, oh man, like, what is their view of God? Like, how was their view of God? Because they have to have such a high view of who God is in order to endure the things they endured and count it like that is worth the cost. And so really just digging into who God is and, how I should view him and how they viewed it. Like, it was such a faith building book for me.
What was the name of that one?
It's called Of Love and Treason.
Okay.
Yeah. So I finished that book, kind of wrestling with some things in my own personal life where I'd prayed for something and God answered and gave it to me. And then I was praising God, thanking God, and he took it away. And it was just like, why? Why say yes and then say no? And I felt him just teaching me just over and again through that. Like, do you trust me only when I'm giving you things that are good? Or do you trust me when things are hard? And I say no. Like, so that was a really, that book is very special to me just for all of those things that God was teaching me. And it was hard. It wasn't easy.
Yeah.
It was painful. But a lot of that kind of made its way just naturally into the book. And as I was, wrestling with God and I was opening this, document and writing, I was like, oh my goodness, they're dealing with the same thing I am. Like, it was just interesting. So I finished that book and really loved it. Felt like this was the book, like, this one needs to be published. This is the one. And started querying agents, and everybody told me nobody wants ancient Rome. There's no market for this story. There's no place for this story. No.
Did they not hear about Francine Rivers?
Apparently not. You're not supposed to compare yourself to like the most amazing writer.
There's a market for Roman Empire books.
Yeah. So they were like, we're not taking this chance. So I went through every single agent in the Christian publishing field I could think of, like, that I knew. I had the book with all the names, like they're all checked off because they all said no. And then, I went through the whole list and everybody was a no. And it was, a full year, at least of that. And so I was like, I don't know what to do. God, like, did you just want me to write this book for me? And maybe that's enough. Like, maybe this was just for you to work on my heart, and I need to be okay with that. And it was hard because I loved this story so much. But I was like, okay, well, maybe this is just for me and I just need to like let it go. And so I wrote something else because all the agents were like, write something normal and recognizable. So I was like, fine, I'm going to go back to colonial. So I wrote a colonial story and started querying that with the same response. Nobody wants colonial. This isn't selling. There's no market for this. Like, oh my goodness. So like another year of that. And then I was like, okay, well, I did this twice, went through all the agents. Everybody said no. Lord, I don't know where to go from here. So it was all of those rejections. It was also like these stories were winning these unpublished contests, and then agents were saying no. And so I was like, I don't know if I'm a good writer or bad writer. Like, I just have to like surrender. And so I just like came to this moment of, okay, I did all the things I could do. Like, now it's up to God and his timing. And it was like a couple days later, I saw Christy Cambron announced that she was going to be an agent with Gardner Literary. And I felt God immediately go, her, now, go, like, send it to her right now. So I did. I sent her the Valentine story, and she asked for the full manuscript. It's like, this has never happened. So I signed with her like a month later, and then we had a contract about 2 months later with Tyndale. So it was
Wow.
like a lot of no's in the beginning, and then when God said yes, this is the time, the doors just opened.
Wow. Wow.
So
And that is quite the lesson on waiting on God and his timing. And it's not that the book shouldn't have been written. It's just that was the time to get it released. But it's so hard to do that in the middle.
it
It's,
is, it is. But then, like, looking back, and you're seeing all the ways that God was growing you and teaching you and refining you in those, in the 2 years that we were, was going through this. I was like, oh man, yeah, I was not ready. I was not ready to have a publishing contract then. Like, I am so glad that we had these 2 years to just work on my heart. And,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, well, I think that's really neat how he worked on you. And I can't remember who said it, but there's something about writing. There's a quote about it's not the book, it's the who you become in writing it as an
Mhm.
author. And I don't know who said that quote. So somebody can Google it and find it out and let us know later who said that. But I always like to know those things that God teaches us in the middle of it, because there's so many things that we learn that then we try to pass on to the reader. But there's some other things that he wants to teach us in the middle of it that maybe aren't for anybody else, but they're for us. And in that journey and such. And this was definitely a passion that God placed in your heart, either colonial or Rome, which, yeah, they're very different.
Very different.
It's like I've spoken to one person, she does romantic suspense and contemporary romance, and I'm like, okay, those are two very, very different. Although I think Rome and colonial may be a little further apart, but that's okay. But yeah, it's just a totally different way of looking at it and such, when you're going about it. But I would love to ask you, as I ask most of all of my guests, what would you say to encourage someone else? Because I'm sure you got some encouragement along the way. If it took 2 years, you needed some encouragement along the way to keep going. What would you say to encourage someone else to pursue that passion that God has placed in their heart?
I mean, just like in my own walk, it was a passion God gave me to write stories, to tell stories, and whatever your passion is, it's likely not going to be easy.
Mm,
It's not going to be easy. There's going to be a lot of roadblocks and a lot of rejection along the way. But if you are firm in, the passion that God has given you, if you are firm in that and holding tightly to that, like the Lord gave this to you, it's for a reason. Just keep going forward. Keep going on with it, because it's not going to be easy, but it'll be worth it. Whether it's just in your own heart or if it's meant to reach other people too, it'll always be worth it.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I agree with that. And although we don't like hearing that, we don't like hearing that. We somehow think that if God has given us this thing, whatever this thing is, that somehow he should just say, "I have given this to you." And you go, "Oh, okay, that's great." And he just all green lights,
Yeah.
smooth sailing. And then we wonder that when we hit the red light, or in my case today, hit tech problems, we go, "Ah, I don't know, this is just not worth it. I don't know if I'm doing what
This
I'm
this
supposed
is
to be
God's
doing.
probably saying no.
God's telling me no, and I just can't get this to work right, and then I cut my finger, and it's just, and we can let some of those things really kind of get us stuck, and we do have to kind of go, okay, wait a minute, take a pause. No, he does really want me to do this, and I just kind of have to keep learning and growing. And as you mentioned, you've grown so much over that process and become a lot more able to and to take these publishings and go with the next things and the next steps and all of that. Well, Jamie, if somebody is interested in this book, the other one that we mentioned of Love and Treason, some of your colonial things, what is the best way for them to connect with you?
You can find me on my website. It's jamieogle.com.
Okay.
There's links to all of my books, and things on there. I don't actually have colonial stuff out, but
Oh,
those
okay.
are those are the unpublished things. But I do have all three of my ancient Rome Empire books are all linked into my website. You can find me on Facebook. There's links on there, and Instagram links on there as well. So
Okay.
it's all on the website.
Yeah, very good. Well, we will look forward to all of those because I was like, I didn't remember seeing anything colonial on there, but I guess that's for another time period, another season.
I've been told to wait, right?
Yes, you have been told to wait.
Yep.
And then when it's the right time, well, part of me is like, it is the 250th this year. So this could have,
Oh,
maybe, I don't
could have
know.
been.
Yeah. Oh well. Oh well. We'll just keep waiting for that right time period
Yeah.
with all of that. Well, Jamie, thank you so much. And again, I thoroughly enjoyed the book. I really I enjoy my summer reading series because I get to just go into a story and learn lessons through them because we can definitely learn. But I thoroughly enjoyed sitting back and escaping into ancient Rome for a while with Adele and Felix and all the other characters that you fleshed out so well. You did a beautiful job with that. And thanks so much for that and for spending time with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm glad you enjoyed the book, and this conversation was so fun. So thank you.